Welcome back, everyone. Today we're doing a deep dive into, well, a really fascinating account. It's one that seems to challenge the standard scientific take on near-death experiences, or NDEs.
hmm Yeah, we've got this incredibly detailed source from someone who was a lifelong skeptic, an atheist, actually.
Mhm.
And they had this massive life-changing experience.
But crucially, without actually being near clinical death, that's the key part, right?
Exactly. Our mission today is to explore this account. It focuses heavily on the full life review phenomenon, the FLR. And it was all triggered just by the absolute psychological certainty that they were about to die.
Happened when they were just a kid back in 1960.
Right. And it completely flips their view of reality, their ideas about knowledge, everything.
Mhm.
Shifted them away from lifelong atheism.
So let's start with that mindset before the incident. The source really emphasizes growing up as a total non-believer.
Yeah, they talk about seeing through what they call the total frauds.
Yeah.
The Easter Bunny, Tooth Fairy, Santa Claus.
Huh, okay. So that disappointment kind of set the stage.
It really did. It wasn't just childhood things. They felt that if religion or any kind of woo-woo mysticism, as they put it, was real, it must be based on tricks, like hiding presents.
So a very grounded, almost defiant skepticism.
Definitely. They thought they were too smart to be fooled.
Yeah.
Approached their 20s basically as a staunch materialist, needed hard empirical proof for anything outside the purely physical.
That level of initial skepticism really makes what happened next stand out, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Because they had zero framework, zero mental space to accept something like this. They weren't looking for it. They were actively rejecting the possibility.
Okay, so let's get into that moment. The moment that shattered that worldview. We're in Toronto, East End, January 1960.
Yeah, a bitter cold day, but sunny. A Saturday afternoon. The scene is a park near the Danforth, and it's packed with kids sledding.
Very specific details. It grounds the story.
It does. And the speaker, maybe 7 or 8 years old at the time, they describe the chaos on the hill. But what really stands out is the description of the winter gear. Typical Canadian winter stuff back then.
Right, like those huge plastic snow boots.
Exactly. Enormous brown plastic ones, worn over regular shoes, and 2 pairs of thick socks. Clumsy, hard to move in, you can picture it.
Totally. And the scarf detail wrapped around the head.
Yeah, to keep my brain from freezing, they said.
Huh.
It paints this perfect picture of a kid bundled up, maybe a bit overprepared for some serious sledding.
So the hill itself, it was crowded.
Super crowded. So they had to find a clear spot to take off from.
Yeah.
And the only clear run pointed to their sled, like directly at a small building at the bottom.
What kind of building?
A solid brick park maintenance shed. Not something you want to aim for.
Definitely not. So they start down the hill.
Yep, off they go. It's a wild ride, picking up speed really fast. They're holding onto the steering ropes, trying to manage it.
And then disaster.
Right in the middle of descent. Snap. The right steering rope just breaks off completely.
Oh, wow. Instant loss of control.
Total loss. The sled immediately swerves violently right towards that brick shed. And the kid knows instantly, this is it. They're going to hit it.
The visualization they had was intense, too.
Incredibly visceral. Picturing their brains smeared red and gray across the pristine snow. Just sheer terror and this absolute certainty of death.
Yeah, that certainty seems to be the key psychological trigger here.
It seems so.
Mm.
Instinct takes over. They try to bail out, roll into the snow.
But they weren't clear.
No, that's the terrifying part. They realized the other rope, the one still attached to the sled, somehow got tangled around the buckle of one of those big, clumsy snow boots.
Oh my God, so the sled is still moving.
And accelerating downhill, acting like an anchor, pulling the child with it, dragging them closer and closer to the shed.
Okay, so physically, still moving, maybe still a bit of distance, but mentally.
Mentally, it's over. The source says in the very instant they closed their eyes and opened their mouth to scream, that's when it happened. The internal switch flipped.
The full life review.
Bang! Their entire life flashed before their eyes.
And this is where it gets, well, beyond our usual understanding of time and memory.
Completely. The description is just astonishing. It wasn't like a highlight reel. It was instantaneous and total. The source is adamant. It included everything.
Everything, like actions, words.
Actions, words said, yeah. But also every thought they'd ever had, every piece of clothing they'd ever worn, every meal they'd ever eaten.
Wow, that's comprehensive, doesn't even cover it.
Right. And crucially, relationships. Every person they'd known, every book read, every TV show watched, even pets, puppies, kittens, hamsters they'd cuddled. all of it.
And the cognitive state during this, how did that feel?
That's maybe the most critical part. It wasn't just recalling memories passively. They described achieving a level of consciousness and alertness greater than normal. More consciousness and alertness than normal.
Thoughts moving incredibly fast.
Super fast, and time. Well, time just seemed to stop or become irrelevant. It all happened at once, simultaneously, not sequentially.
Did physical limitations also change? They mentioned being short-sighted.
Yes, that's another bizarre detail. Senses were incredibly more vivid, and their vision, normally poor, was described as absolutely perfect during the review.
That really does suggest a state totally separate from normal brain function, doesn't it?
It points that way, absolutely. Disconnected from the usual physiological limits.
And the core takeaway from this flood of information, the big insight.
The gnosis, that's the term often used. Deep, direct spiritual knowledge. The source puts it very simply, I understood everything.
Okay, but what does everything mean in this context? It sounds huge.
It was about understanding motivations, their own motivations, in every single moment of their life up to that point, and maybe even more profound.
Understanding others.
Yes,
Yeah.
understanding the motivation of everyone they'd ever interacted with, instantly. And this wasn't judgmental. It came with this overwhelming feeling of harmony, of unity with the world.
For a 7-year-old atheist kid, that's just mind-blowing. To suddenly grasp the interconnectedness of everything.
It's the definition of a transformative experience. Instant, total comprehension.
Okay, so now we have snap back to reality. The sled, the shed, what actually happened physically, because this is where the paradox lies.
Exactly. When the sled finally stopped dragging them, they were still maybe a dozen meters away from the brick building. Still a fair distance.
So no actual collision, no injury.
None. The source is crystal clear on this. They state, I thought it was life-threatening, but it wasn't. Their brain, their body, was in no physiological danger at all. Scared, shocked, yes, but physically unharmed.
And yet, the full life review happened, the very phenomenon usually linked to a dying brain.
Precisely. And this just flips the standard materialist explanation on its head, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If NDEs are just the product of a brain shutting down, low oxygen, chemical releases, how does that explain this?
It doesn't seem to. The brain wasn't shutting down.
Not at all. It seems the trigger wasn't physical distress, but purely psychological distress. The absolute belief, the certainty of imminent death was enough.
It shifts the focus dramatically, from the body's state to the mind's state.
Yeah, from physiology to psychology, almost. The perceived reality, even if mistaken, kicked off this incredibly complex cognitive event. The trigger wasn't lack of oxygen. The trigger, it seems, was belief, absolute conviction.
So what happened immediately after? Did they tell anyone?
They tried to explain to their parents, my life flashed before my eyes.
And how did that go down?
Complete dismissal. Both parents just assumed the kid was repeating something they'd heard on TV or read in a book. A cliche.
Ouch. Talk about invalidation after experiencing cosmic consciousness.
Right. Imagine being told you just copied Lassie or something. But the memory, obviously, had stuck deeply.
And processing it years later led to big changes.
Huge changes. They completely lost their fear of death, started a serious deep study into the philosophy of consciousness, and of course shifted from atheism.
To espionage.
Yep. Spiritual, but not religious. They ditched any need for organized religion, but the experience itself convinced them there was more to reality than just matter. It led them to a belief in some form of universal consciousness.
Okay, this leads us perfectly into the kind of philosophical shift that occurred. It wasn't just what they believed, but how they understood knowledge itself.
Exactly. Before the experience, they saw the world in two camps, believers and well-known non-believers like themselves. Afterwards, they realized, no, there are actually 4 types.
4 types of people based on their relationship with this kind of knowledge.
Sort of, yeah. The first group, which the speaker now identifies with, are those who know. These are people who've had a direct, transformative experience like an NDE. They've gained wisdom through gnosis, that direct experiential knowing.
And they consider this knowledge true.
Inherently true to the person who experienced it, yes. Then the second group, those who believe. People who haven't had the direct experience but accept the possibility or reality of something beyond the physical. This could be anyone from, devoutly religious folks to the SBNR crowd.
Okay. Group 3.
Those who aren't sure, the agnostics. They acknowledge we don't know everything. They remain open, sitting on the fence, perhaps.
And the fourth group. This seems important given the source's background.
It is. This is the physicalists or materialists. Those who assert they know that reality is only matter and energy. nothing more. And this is where the source offers a pretty sharp critique.
Based on their own experience, presumably?
Based on their experience and also on, well, philosophy of mind. The critique isn't necessarily about the scientific method, but about the certainty some materialists express regarding consciousness.
How so?
The source points out that physicalism right now has absolutely no explanation for how physical stuff, neurons firing, chemicals reacting, actually generates the subjective quality of an experience, what philosophers call qualia.
Right, the what it's like aspect. Like, why does a C sharp sound like that? Or why does red look red?
Exactly. Or the taste of a ripe cherry, the smell of a rose, the feeling of grief. Science can map the brain activity associated with these things, but it can't explain how that activity becomes the feeling, the sensation, the subjective experience itself.
We know the hardware correlates, but we don't know how it creates the software or the user experience, maybe.
That's good analogies.
Yeah.
So the source argues to state with certainty that consciousness is only a brain byproduct when you cannot explain the most fundamental aspect of consciousness, qualia, our entire subjective reality. Well, that's maybe going too far. It's an assertion based on incomplete knowledge.
So the big conclusion from this lifelong reflection on that childhood moment.
It's powerful. The speaker concludes that there are other ways to discover truth, valid ways, besides science and empiricism alone, spiritual truths gained through gnosis, direct experience.
And they see this Gnostic path as equally valid.
Every bit as valid, they say. And maybe, they suggest, even more necessary for humanity's survival right now. The ultimate message is that both kinds of knowing, the empirical scientific kind and the Gnostic experiential kind, need to work together. We need both for a complete understanding.
Wow. Okay, so recapping the core takeaway for you, the listener, it's the incredible power of just the perceived threat of death.
That perception alone unlocked this instantaneous total download of a person's entire life. A profound cognitive event triggered not by the body failing, but by the mind's absolute certainty that it was about to fail.
It really does challenge that line between what we can physically measure and verify and what is experientially, subjectively true. And the source, this former hardcore skeptic, becomes a prime example of someone convinced by that experiential truth.
It shifts the whole question, really, away from just the body's breakdown and towards consciousness itself and what it might be capable of under extreme psychological pressure.
Which leaves us with a final thought to chew on, perhaps. If something as profound as a full life review can be triggered simply by the belief, the mistaken belief, even that death is imminent.
Yeah. What does that really suggest about consciousness? About its potential function, its boundaries? Is it possible the mind has this kind of, emergency archives capability, a way to achieve total comprehension?
A mechanism only accessible when that primal survival instinct is completely overwhelmed by the psychological certainty of the end.
It's a fascinating question, something to definitely mull over after this deep dive.
Thank you for listening to Borrowed Time NDE Podcasts. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you'll never miss a moment of inspiration. Until next time, wishing you an extraordinary and truly wonderful time on your journey through life.